What's good, YouTube? Welcome to episode 11 of Survival Tutorial. In the last episode, we started working on our space base, and in this episode, we need to get it ready for automation. We are going to be automatically building within the next few episodes, so that's going to be something to definitely stick around for. In this episode, we are going to rework some of our spaceships here and go ahead and get the base ready for the automation of the building. We're going to be building a tunnel through the asteroid and automatically build it as we dig it. And that will be in the next episode. But in the last episode, we worked on building our base in space. In this episode, we need to work on getting things ready to automate the tunneling system that we will be using. In order to do that, we need to upgrade a lot of things on the base. And we're going to need to actually get a more efficient space faring vehicle, as well as a welding ship built for space. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. So in between episodes, I went ahead and picked up some cobalt and a little bit of stone so we can get to working on what we're going to do here. The first thing we need to do is start thinking about moving everything over from this area into where we're going to build our base in here. I want to use basically a tunnel through the uranium here. That way we can get up all the uranium. I've marked everything out in order to get to the dimensions that we want to. We just basically want to drill a hole straight through the uranium here, on all the way through to the other side of the asteroid. That way we've got an asteroid tunnel through the base. So I basically just used the scaffolding in order to get the right dimensions so we know how to set our drills up. And I'm going to drill a tunnel straight through here, and we're going to use an automated drilling system to do so. That will not only drill, but it'll also build as it drills. It's kind of like the inchworm tunnelers that you see that the Germans use in order to build tunnels through mountains and stuff. We're going to do our own little version of that inside of Space Engineers here. So in order to do that, what we're going to need is we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have to move all this stuff over to here, get all of that set up, and start using pistons, merge blocks, and a drill system. So the first thing I want to do is take some of these light armor blocks that we've got here and start laying them out in order to set a flooring so we can start placing things. Okay, I think we've got enough flooring basically placed here. I've still got to continue just a little bit here, just to add in some floor right here to make it nice and even. Okay, I think we've built enough of a platform to get everything over into that area. So we're going to have to actually move all this stuff over here. So what I'm going to do in order to do that is I'm just going to start placing all of these things and then chopping them down and moving them as it goes. So the first thing we want to do is place the refinery here. Now we're going to need quite a few refineries because we're going to be drilling directly into the side of the wall here, and we're going to have to basically refine everything as quickly as we're refining it. So we're just going to sit this off to the side here to where we can access it to put some speed modules and stuff in. So let me get the refinery spun around here. I think this will work out pretty nicely here. We'll just add a couple of them. I think 4 should be enough. If we have to start slow, that's no problem. We can do that. So with the 4 refineries placed, we're going to need some assemblers too. I think we're going to want at least 2 assemblers running full time, probably more. We're going to be having to make a lot of steel plates. So let's go ahead and add some assemblers in on our base here, and we'll place them here. I believe that's the right place for the ports. I'm not 100% sure. Let me check real quick. Yeah, it is. So now that we've gotten the assemblers added, 4 should be plenty. We'll go ahead and run 4 assemblers and 4 refineries to start with. Now we're going to need some batteries. I'm going to put the batteries underneath the base here. Like I said, I like to hide the batteries. So let's go on and place a couple of these. Okay, I've got 7 batteries placed along the bottom edge there, so they're out of the way and hidden. We could easily put up a wall in here and hide anything we want to in this area. In fact, I think I'm going to, and just run some conveyors down through here. So let's go ahead and do that. I've just got to figure out, I believe this is the spot that we want to cut it at. No, they've got the connectors on. Okay, I've got it. There we go. That's the one that we wanted to break. And we'll go on and run a conveyor down into the bottom there. Along with, we're going to need some large storage. So let's go ahead and add that in. which means I'm going to need some, and I think 4 large containers should be enough for now. We'll run some conveyors down into there and see how that works. 4 large containers will hold a lot of stone, so we should be good on that. And we're going to need to go ahead and we're going to need to also bring over an O2H2 generator here. So let's go ahead and grab that. We'll put that, I guess, right in here. And we will need also a hydrogen tank as well, and I'm just going to place that right in there. It doesn't matter that it's in the stone or anything like that, it'll work just as well. And while we're at it, since we're doing hydrogen and we're going to want the base to be airtight since we are in space, let's go ahead and add an O2 tank as well, and we'll just put that right here on the side. That should work out perfectly, and we'll do vents and stuff like that later. And finally, we're going to need a small reactor as well. I'm going to go ahead and just place that so it'll connect with those two. And also we're going to want to put us a medical room here as well, so we can heal up whenever we are low on anything. But the medical room will be in here. So let's go ahead and figure out how we want to place this here. I think that'll be a good spot for it. That way it's not in the way of anything. So I'm going to get part of this working real quick and I'll be right back. I'm going to do the assembler. I'm going to do the first refinery and probably get that piped up into at least one of these large cargo containers for now. That way we can start doing what we need to do here. All right, so I've gotten everything moved over. I've gotten the reactor, one of the refineries, and one of the assemblers already done over here. I just need to move the stuff over into the reactor here. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to finish up the reactor. I didn't pull anything out before I started, which was probably not a great idea. I'm going to have to go through and manually insert everything. So give me just a second while I do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this loose here, and it's going to dump the uranium out. I need to pick up the uranium, and then I can go dump that into the reactor here. And now we have power on this base, so I can go ahead and queue up some stuff as soon as I get my materials over. And once I do that, I will connect a connector and get everything going from there. I also realized that I misplaced the assemblers here, so I'm getting rid of them and moving them over. So we'll go ahead and just chop these down and move them back into the correct spot. Okay, now that I got everything moved over, it's time to make some power cells here. So I'm just going to queue up a couple hundred of these because we can definitely use them. I think 310 should be more than enough here. So we need to pick up some stuff in order to make those. We are short probably the iron at the moment. So all we need to do is dig up some of this stone we have around here, which we will definitely be doing anyway. So I'm not too worried about that at the moment. Okay, while I was working on this, I decided to start upgrading the base using some automation here. So what I've done here is I've simply brought some conveyors out a little bit away from what we've got going on here. And I've added a piston here with a welder on this end pointed towards what we want to do, and a welder up here as well pointed towards what we want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all ready to go. And once they're ready, I'll show you how to actually use them to build what we want to. Okay, so what I've done here, now that I've got these built up, I've queued up enough for all the refineries and all the assemblers here. I just basically put them in the build planner and queued all the parts, just like we always do. So the next step will be to actually get these things to help us out here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here into the control panel and just cut these things on. So when we cut them on, they'll automatically start building as we make the parts. And once they make the parts and build each one individually, we can move the piston forward. There we go. And move the piston forward and basically build them as they go. So what we're going to do is just wait for these to be done and then move to the next one. And I've made one minor mistake here, so I'm going to have to fix this real quick. Basically, I shouldn't have done it this way because it doesn't have a connector there. So let me fix all of that up real quick and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, now that I've gotten all that fixed up, basically all I did was I put a corner here. That way I could go up through and made sure everything lined up just to where it would be touching whatever it needs to touch here. So now when we turn these on,
Let me get in here. In fact, let's do it this way. Let's just select both of these and then move over. And we'll toggle block on so they're both on at the same time. All right, so they're actually working. They will continue to build as the pieces and parts get made for them. So now all we have to do is wait for the materials to get made, and they will automatically. All right, now that the motors are being made, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's just automatically putting the motors into the pieces. And that's done. It's back on the steel plates now. So I'm just going to let this run, and then each time that each time that a layer of these gets built, I'm going to just go ahead and turn the piston back on. All I did on the piston was I hit the reverse button and then turn the piston off. That way, all I need to do is turn the piston on for a second and it'll move forward. All the new assemblers, I went ahead and upgraded them to cooperative mode and just left the first one non-cooperative. That way, as they get built, they'll automatically start building this stuff for the others. And we're just waiting on the motors now. Okay, everything's built and ready to go. So let's go ahead and just move this along. So all I need to do now is turn this on for a second. In fact, we're going to make it a little bit slower just so we can do it all in one run. So let's run over here and I'll show you how to do that. So all we need to do, come over in the piston, and we're gonna bring the speed down just a tad. For some reason it wouldn't let me, but that should work. I don't know if I think it's gonna be a little too fast. Yeah, it's gonna be a little too fast, but we can always just hit reverse to back it up if we need to. All right, we've got those done now, so we can go ahead and take down all of the stuff that we built here. There's no real need to keep it anymore, so I'm just gonna go ahead and grind those down. And I'm also going to end our dependence on ice here. That way we can use all of our ice for oxygen and other things. Since we picked up some platinum in between episodes, I'm going to go ahead and try to get rid of these engines here and make them all ion engines and create a couple ships here. This is the easier way to design your ships. Just go into creative mode and build them. That way you don't have to worry about welding them up or anything like that. So what I've done is I've made a larger miner that has 2 large cargo holds and not as much of the extra stuff that we had before, along with a large grid detector here. We're going to have to build this separately though, because we're not going to be able to save it to the blueprint. I'll explain that shortly. But all you have to do is create a large grid connector, attach a battery, and then a detector with it. And that way you can basically fly around with it all you want. And if you decide that it's getting too bulky or in the way, all you have to do is undock and it'll leave it there. But I don't recommend moving when you undock it like that, because you're going to run into this issue to where you're going to have to catch it and basically stop, because it'll continue to move just like it did before. But basically this is a setup, so we'll just stop here and we can drop it off anytime that we want to, and then come back and redock to it later if we decide that we need to grab it again. This is a good way to find your materials in your asteroids a lot easier, because it's got a much larger range. Someone actually said something about it in the comments, and I thank you for that, because that's a really good idea. This is the major issue here. You got to be careful, because you can easily knock it off, like I was saying, trying to dock up to it. There's probably better ways to do it. If you were to add landing gears to it, it would probably be smarter. So we're just going to place this. We're going to place a battery on top of here, and on the back we will place the large grid detector. And I'm also going to add on the bottom of here, I'm going to put in a landing gear as well. Now the landing gear, it's a little bit big for what we're wanting to do, but at least this way we can attach it to whatever asteroid we're at if we decide that we want to drop it off. That's the safest way to do it. However, you can actually add some thrusters and stuff to it if you want to, and just make it its own little thing that'll basically stop itself. But I don't recommend doing that. That's just way too much extra stuff. So we're going to hop back in here and we're going to dock back up with this, but we got to be very careful when we're docking, because of the issue that we just saw. I just recommend, if you're going to do this, have a couple extra around somewhere and make sure that you're very careful when you're docking. There we go. now that we're docked, I can show you. We've got some decent acceleration here. And yeah, you notice that we're having issues with hitting things now that we've done this setup. So I don't recommend actually adding the landing gear to this, but this will work out if you're having trouble finding things and you want a large grid detector. So that's one thing to do. So I've added 2 large cargo containers here, made a connector, added a turret, which we're going to be needing because we're in space now and we will come up on some pirates here and there. A couple people have actually mentioned that they've been having more issues with the pirates than I have, and I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that I've just got more practice at avoiding them. I try not to get close enough for them to see me. However, you can't always keep that from happening. I've also added a second connector here with a large grid sorter here, and that will dump all of the stone. So that's pretty simple. And then just basically added the connector on the back for the other little subgrid that we were talking about, and added extra drills. It'll fill up pretty quickly, but it'll fill up with a lot more resource than the other one will. And I've just basically given a really light armoring to the core of the ship. That way, if we do get attacked, at least we've got something that'll keep it from just going straight in and attacking the cargo containers, which are the most important pieces. So we're going to be importing this into the game. The reason why I did this in creative mode is just to show you how to go about using the blueprinting system and bringing things in, and as well as the other ship over here that we've built. This other ship over here is just a simple space welding ship. It's simply 2 thrusters in every direction, along with a battery, a large cargo container, and a welder, just like we did on the Earth-like planet, but made for space instead of atmosphere. In order to do this, let me move this guy back over next to him so I can show you how to blueprint and everything. Okay, so now that we're over next to him, I went ahead and undocked from this because we're actually going to have to build this in game, because with the connector, every time that you have a connector, it's what's called a subgrid. And it does not blueprint subgrids. So it'll only blueprint up to the connector. So if we choose this right here while this is connected, it won't actually blueprint this. We could blueprint it separately and print it separately if we wanted to. I'm going to teach you how to not only do a blueprint, but also how to create a rudimentary 3D printer as well. So anything that you get off of the workshop through the blueprinting system, you'll be able to print within certain certain sizes for the most part. The first thing we're going to go and do is we're going to come into the ship here and we're going to bring up the menu so we can go over to the info page here. And under the info page, you'll notice down at the bottom here, you've got a grid name. We're going to name this the name that we want to do our ship, because this is what it's going to save the blueprint as. So we're going to make this Space Miner just to make it easy, and go ahead and choose OK. Okay, so in order to blueprint this, once we get a decent little view here, so let's go for something like well, I want to hide the sun behind it slightly. Yeah, let's go for something like this, and then we're just going to hit the right stick. We're going to press down on it, and it's going to bring us to quick actions here. So if you hit the right trigger for under the blueprint action, or it's going to bring you to the blueprint actions, and then we'll just choose create blueprint here and right button to confirm. So it's created one for the Space Miner. Now, if you wanted to rename this, you could rename it here to whatever you wanted to. But now that we're going to leave the screenshot the way it is. That's why I previously decided that's where I wanted it. And if you want to publish it to the workshop, all you have to do is hit this button here, and it will, well, let's see, we need this to be a ship, and then we will hit X for OK, and now it's uploading to the workshop. This will be available on the workshop. If you go under my stuff, I will make sure that it works on the workshop. I don't know what's happening right now. I think Steam's messing up today, but I'll publish this if I get the chance to. And then now that we've gotten that one done, we're just going to come through and do the same exact thing with this guy. And we're going to rename him Space Welder. So once again, come into the menu, go to Info, down to the name here, and type in Space Welder. And select OK, and we are done. So now we can hop out again, come back through and choose to create blueprint, and we now have space welder. So we have both of those in our blueprints. Now we can move on out of here, out of this game, and into the actual save game of our regular game. I recommend always leaving at least one empty world here for this exact purpose, to where you can design your ships without having to worry too much about everything. So we're going to hop out, and I'm going to load or exit the main menu and load up the other game. Okay, now that we're back in our standard world, I have messed around with this quite a bit. We're going to be tearing this one down with the welder, but basically what I've done there is just converted it over to nothing but the ion thrusters instead of the hydrogen. But the fact of the matter is we still have the hydrogen tank and all of that, so it's not nearly as efficient as it should be, which is why I built the other one in the first place. And I'm starting to get things ready for the next episode, which is actually going to be, we're going to create a tunneling machine that'll tunnel its way through right here in this spot and actually build a wall around it as it goes. We'll be covering quite a lot in that episode, so make sure you catch that one. That's going to teach you pretty much everything you need to know about automation, timer blocks, pistons, you name it, it's going to be in that video. The only thing we're not going to cover, I think, is rotors, and that's simply because we can't do experimental mode here, so we're not going to be able to do the shear inertial tensors. So in order to keep it stable, we're not going to use rotors. We're just going to build, basically, we're going to build a drilling system that will drill out a square hole all the way through the asteroid and build its own walls as it goes. So that'll be an interesting little setup. But what we're going to do here is we're going to actually set up kind of like we did on the last base that we had. So we're going to need to do a rotor here. We're going to want just a regular old rotor. It doesn't matter if it doesn't need to be advanced, and that'll be under advanced systems here. So we're just going to place a regular rotor here. And as we did in the last one, we're going to get rid of the rotor part there. And we're going to go ahead and get this thing welded up so we can add the correct head to it. So I'll be right back. So in order to do that, we're just going to reach over to any control panel we can find, and we're going to choose this over here, and we're going to find the rotor on our list here. Then we're just going to scroll down here and make sure that we add small head here. If you remember, that's how we get from large grid to small grid easily. So now that we've got the small head, I'm going to go ahead and get that all welded up and ready to go. And then on top of that, we're going to need to place some small blocks. So let me go on and grab what we need for this. All right, now I've added basically just a little structure here that we can build off of. So in order to move forward, we're going to need a battery, just like we did in the last one. We're going to add a battery, and we can actually get away with the small battery, but I'm just going to go with the regular battery here. And we're also going to need as well the projector, so we'll get into that. I'm just going to place the battery and the projector real quick and get back with you. All right, now that we've gotten that placed, we want to come down and make sure that we set the rotor. Remember before where we had the issues with the rotor before? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on and rotor lock the rotor. That way it doesn't go spinning around or anything like that. And then we can just cut the rotor off. That way it doesn't try to fight as much. There we go. I've got that cut off now. And we will get this set up the way we need to as soon as I pick up a little bit of energy here. Okay, now that that's done, there's something we need to do in order to set this up correctly. First off, we're going to have to build us one of those seats like we did on the last one so we can actually see what's going on with this. So I'm going to place a seat right over here, just where I get a good view from the seat of the area which we want to print at. Okay, so I'm just going to place a control seat here. That means I need some interior plates. Be right back. Okay, so that should be a good spot to see everything from, and go on and get this welded up for you guys. Okay, so now that that's done, we can go ahead and sit in the seat and start controlling everything that we need to control from here. So we're just going to go into our control panel here, and we're going to find our projector here, and we're going to go to blueprints, and we can load the blueprint of the one that we want to build. So the first thing we're going to build is going to be we're not going to do the mining ship first. We're going to do the small one first, just so I can show you what's going on with it. So we're just going to come down here and find the blueprint that we created. So this would be the space welder, and we're going to choose that one. And then we can back out of here, and we need to add controls here, which this is going to be a little bit hard on the controller. So sorry about this. we're going to have to come through and find our projector by holding down one of the buttons here. It doesn't matter which button as long as it's not assigned, so one of your D-pad buttons. And we're going to find the projector here. And we're going to go for increase horizontal offset. Since we only have 4 controls per bar, I'm just going to do increases and be very careful not to overdo it. So we're going to do increase, and then we're going to do the other one. So we're going to increase all of the offsets with the what we have on the bar here. And I'm also going to add a pitch increase as well, so we can spin it if we have to. This is one of the times where I will definitely say it's better to have a mouse and keyboard. So if you have the ability, definitely use the mouse and keyboard for this part right here. Okay, so we're going to go for pitch. And we're going to be very careful about how we do this. So we want to move this forward just enough to where we can build something. All right, there we go. And actually, that'll work out just fine. So we're going to hop out of the seat here, and it's centered quite nicely. We got lucky on that one. And we've got the entire thing is away from everything else. So that'll work out just fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to auto build this using a welder connected to the base using pistons. So what we're going to have to do here is I'm going to have to build a conveyor system that comes out a little bit and then put some welders on the end of a piston. Let me get that built real quick and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, now that I've got everything queued up and the welders basically working, as you see, they're welding each other together, which is good. This is what we're looking for. Now, we're probably going to have to weld this side piece over here. I don't think that's going to reach. So, yeah, it looks like we're actually going to have to weld those by hand. So let's go ahead and take care of that. All right, so now that I've gotten all of this done, let me go in and I need to cut off all these welders before I bring it in and I can show you what I'm talking about. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to extend the pistons until the point that they reach to where they can weld this together, and then we're going to turn them on and back them out very slowly. And what's going to happen is as they back out, they're going to build these pieces and parts, and they're going to connect the other pieces and parts that can be built. And basically we're going to come off of this battery and basically 3D print this entire thing here. Now, one thing we need to do before that is I need to go grab some platinum because we need enough for these for these engines here. So once I get this made, I can go ahead and take this welder off and add a grinder and grind this other ship down. So I should have enough for the new ship that we're going to build. But for the time being, we're still going to need enough for this. So I'm going to have to make a run real quick. But let's go ahead and get this set up real quick, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to come in here and we're going to select all these welders. So we're just going to run up to the top one. We're going to hold down the right bumper, and then we're just going to scroll down to the bottom welder. I'm not worried about being careful with this or anything because the welders are the last on the list, so we can just scroll all the way down. And we're just going to come over here and we're going to cut these off for now. Now that they're cut off, we can move them forward until we feel comfortable with where they're at. The reason why I added 2 pistons is just to make sure we can get enough distance, because we want to print the other ship too, and it's going to be a little bit longer. So we want enough distance in between here to there to fit that ship, if that makes any sense. So that's the reason why I added the 2 pistons. That way we can get it further back. So we're going to go in and just take this and reverse it for now and let this extend all the way and see how far that goes. 2 pistons seems to be a little bit overkill for what we're doing here. In fact, 1 piston might be enough. Okay, so that's a little bit short. So let's go ahead and set this other piston here. So 2 pistons was perfect. Let's go on and set it for a maximum distance. I'll say of about, we're going to start out at 3 and we'll move up from there and see where we're at after that, and just reverse so it'll extend and see how much further we need to go. 3 seems like it might be about right. That should touch everything, so that'll be good. Now, before we start welding this together, I need to go run and grab some platinum, so I'll be right back with you. Okay, so it looks like everything's already gone through. I went ahead and queued up everything that was on the ship just to make sure we had enough of everything, and upgraded the assembler speed modules as well. There's only 3 speed modules per assembler, but that's not a big deal. It's gonna be fast enough. As you see, it kicks through it pretty quickly here. So now that that's done, all we need to do is go into our control panel here where we've got our welders and turn those on. and they'll start working. And all we need to do now is come up here and find either one of our 2 pistons. It doesn't really matter which one. I'm going to go for the one that's got the maximum, the one connected to the base here. Or not to the base, but the one that's at current position 10. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to slow it down quite a bit to about 0.1 meters per second. You'll see why just in just a short bit. There we go. And then I'm going to hit reverse and back it up at 0.1 meters per second. That way it just slowly backs out and we can get everything as it comes here. Hopefully we should be able to get everything, but if we don't get everything here, then it looks like we might have to do some of this by hand. It looks like the connector on the back was out of reach, and the gyroscope as well. So we're going to have to actually grab the pieces for that, but that's fine. As you see, it's printed everything else. There are a couple things that we need to touch up by hand, but nothing serious. So what we need to do is we need to add this to the build planner, and we need to add the gyroscope here to the build planner. All right, so we're just going to have to go ahead and grab up the individual pieces for those and do them by hand. But as you see, it made a lot of difference by running it the way we did. So that's really good. And then we just need to go ahead and finish these pieces up. Now that we've got our welding machine ready to go, we need to go ahead and give it a way to dock to the base. Now, I want to basically put it on the ceiling here, so I'm going to have to run some conveyors up, but that'll be fine. I think we'll be able to deal with that. Oh, and also remember, when you place your projector, if you want it to do right, remember you need the plus on the top and you need the 2 lines on the front as well, so it's in the right position. There we go. That'll make things easier when you're going to move your projection around. All right, so now that we've got that done, I'm just going to place all the way up to here to the ceiling where we're going to have our ceiling, and place a connector on the end of that so we can dock with this. So I'm going to have to bring it a little bit above the ceiling because of the way that we dock here. So let me get all that done for you and we can start charging this thing up. All right, I got that done. Now notice I put a conveyor, just a conveyor block here instead of the tube. The reason why is because we're going to want this place to be airtight before it's over with, and these blocks would not be airtight if they go through. So this one would. So I just put where the ceiling's going to be, I put a conveyor. Just save myself some trouble later, not having to rebuild that system. So we're going to come down here now and we're just going to chop this thing loose. And now that we're loose, we're just going to go ahead and dock with the ship, or with the base here where we just added our dock. And that way we can charge up the batteries. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this welder and turn it into a grinder for what I'm about to do. That way we can use all the pieces and parts that we already have on the other ship here. You don't necessarily need to do that, but I'm just going to recycle the old ship. It'll make things a little bit quicker and easier. Okay, so yeah, that's plenty high enough. We don't have to worry about hitting the base or anything like that. So while that's working, I'm going to go ahead and swap this over. The good thing about these ships are they are interchangeable, and if I remember correctly, I believe they even use the same materials for each. As soon as I can find them. There we go. Yeah, they use the same materials. So with what we just took off, or got from taking that one off, we can actually add a grinder instead of a welder, and we should be able to just go ahead and upgrade it without having to pick anything else up. We're going to be short 2 motors, so that's not a big deal. I just made a bunch of those, so let me grab them out of storage here. Okay, so our welder slash grinder ship is done. There are ways you can get pretty creative with it, especially in space, to where you can use both welders and grinders on the same ship. I've seen some pretty interesting builds. One where it flips around between the welder and the grinder. That's a really good idea. We'll probably mess with that a little bit later. This is just about getting an initial setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this in between videos, because we're pretty much ready to do what I want to do in the next episode now. In between videos, I'm going to go ahead and print off that other ship. I will go ahead and grind this guy down and get ready for what I want to do in the next episode. Make sure you catch that one. That's going to be very, very interesting. I'm glad you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit that like button to let me know that you did. Also, if you want to make sure that you catch the videos as soon as they come out, be sure to click that subscribe button and hit that bell notification. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, click one of the videos on your screen now. Thank you. Have a nice day.